Moving to the next subject. First, and it's a relatively simple question, Mr. Mladić, have you received a copy of the indictment in your own language?
As for those 3 binders that were brought to my cell, is that indictment, that document in one of those 3 binders? I haven't read that. If it's there.
I do understand that you have received more information. The indictment is a document consisting of 37 pages in which the charges against you are set out. It may be that you have briefly discussed that already with Mr. Alexic, because it is among what you find in the 3 binders. It is certainly, if not the most, a very important document. Mr. Mladić, have you gone through that indictment? That is that 37-page document in which 11 counts are stated, counts of what you are charged with.
I had a look at the binders, and I did not read what was written there. If that was in those binders, then that indictment is there, but I don't know what is written there, and I haven't read that. I need at least 2 months to read those 3 binders, if not more.
Let me first get some information. Mr. Mladić, I'm informed that you received the indictment as a separate document on Wednesday, and that you only received the 3 binders at a later stage. So I'm talking exclusively about the one document that was given to you on Wednesday. Did you receive that document, and was that in your own language?
Mr. Alexic met me at this prison hospital, and he showed this to me on 2 sheets of paper, this indictment. If that is it, then I have taken that into account, but I did not want to sign anything because I want to have a proper defense. I don't want just one man. I don't know the man. He's from Serbia.
Mr. Mladić, we are not talking yet about what position to take. I'm not talking about signing anything. The first thing I want to establish is whether you received it and whether you understood it. And Mr. Alexic, have you gone with Mr. Mladić through the indictment?
Absolutely, Your Honor.
Did you at any moment gain the impression that he did not understand what the indictment was about?
To a single moment did I have that impression, Your Honor.
Mr. Mladić will proceed on the basis, and you'll have further time to carefully study the indictment if you need that time. We'll come to that at a later stage. Mr. Mladić, you have the right to have that indictment to be read to you now today in court, the full 37 pages. But you also may waive that right so that we'll not read the whole of the indictment. Do you want to exercise the right to have it read in full?
I do not want to have a single letter or sentence of that indictment read out to me.
Well, that's another matter. I do understand that even in stronger words, you waive your right, the indictment to be read out to you. Nevertheless, this is put on the record that you waive this right, but I'll nevertheless summarize the indictment briefly, both for you, but also to the benefit of the public. We'll not read it in its entirety, but we'll read a summary. And I would like to emphasize that it is just a brief summary of the indictment, intended to give a rough impression of the charges against the accused. Now, the authoritative text is found exclusively in the prosecution's operative indictment, which was filed on the 1st of June of this year. According to the indictment, you, Ratko Mladić, are charged with genocide, crimes against humanity, and violations of the laws and customs of war under several modes of liability, including joint criminal enterprise. The indictment alleges 3 separate joint criminal enterprises and 1 overarching joint criminal enterprise. According to the indictment, Radovan Karadzic and Ratko Mladić were key members of the overarching joint criminal enterprise, which lasted from at least October 1991 until the 30th of November 1995. The objective was the permanent removal of Bosnian Muslims and Bosnian Croats from Bosnian Serb claimed territory in Bosnia and Herzegovina through crimes charged in the indictment. Ratko Mladić participated in the overarching joint criminal enterprise, including by the commission of genocide, persecution, extermination, murder, deportation, and forcible transfer. He allegedly acted in concert with other members of this criminal enterprise, and they include Radovan Karadzic, Momcilo Krajisnik, Slobodan Milosevic, Biljana Plavsic, Nikola Koljevic, Micho Stanisic, Momcilo Mandic, Jovica Stanisic, Franko Simatovic, Željko Ražnatovic, also known as Arkan, and Vojislav Šešel. According to the indictment, Ratko Mladić significantly contributed to the overarching joint criminal enterprise, including by commanding and controlling the Bosnian Serb Army and failing to take adequate measures to protect Bosnian Muslim and Bosnian Croat prisoners of war and detainees. Ratko Mladić and Radovan Karadzic also participated in 3 additional joint criminal enterprises. The objective of the first of these was to spread terror among the civilian population of Sarajevo through a campaign of sniping and shelling. This joint criminal enterprise existed between April 1992 and November 1995. The criminal enterprise involved the commission of the crimes of terror, unlawful attack on civilians, and murder. In this criminal enterprise, Mladić acted in concert with, among others, Stanislav Galić and Dragomir Milosevic. The objective of the second additional joint criminal enterprise was to eliminate the Bosnian Muslims in Srebrenica. From around the 11th of July 1995 until the 1st of November 1995, Ratko Mladić participated in this joint criminal enterprise by killing the men and boys and forcibly removing the women, young children and some elderly men from Srebrenica. This objective amounted to or included the crimes of genocide, persecution, extermination, murder, deportation, and forcible transfer. Participants of the joint criminal enterprise included members of a Serbian MUP unit called the Scorpions. The objective of the third additional joint criminal enterprise was to take United Nations personnel as hostages. During May and June 1995, Ratko Mladić participated in this joint criminal enterprise in order to compel NATO to abstain from conducting airstrikes against Bosnian Serb military targets. According to the indictment, in addition to his liability through his participation in the mentioned joint criminal enterprises, Ratko Mladić is individually criminally responsible for planning, instigating, ordering, and aiding and abetting the crimes charged in the indictment. According to the indictment, Ratko Mladić is also criminally responsible as a superior. Between the 12th of May 1992 and the 8th of November 1996, Ratko Mladić was the most senior officer of the Bosnian Serb Army. In this capacity, he had effective control over members of this army. Ratko Mladić knew, or had reason to know, that crimes were about to be committed or had been committed by its members. He failed to take the necessary and reasonable measures to prevent the commission of such crimes or to punish the perpetrators thereof. I will now go through the charges. Count 1, genocide. The indictment alleges that between the 31st of March 1992 and the 31st of December 1992, Bosnian Serb political and governmental organs and Serb forces carried out a campaign of persecutions against Bosnian Muslims and Bosnian Croats in certain municipalities in Bosnia and Herzegovina. This campaign included conduct that manifested an intent to destroy in part the national, ethnical, or religious groups of Bosnian Muslims and Bosnian Croats as such. The conduct consisted of killings of Bosnian Muslims and Bosnian Croats, causing them serious bodily or mental harm, including by torture and rape, and detaining them under conditions of life calculated to bring about their physical destruction. The most extreme manifestations of the intent to partially destroy these groups took place in the municipalities of Bratunac, Foča, Cluj, Kotrovaros, Prijedor, Sanski Most, Vlasenica, and Srebrenica. Count 2 also deals with genocide. The indictment alleges that around the 6th of July 1995, Bosnian Serb forces attacked the Srebrenica enclave, the takeover of which was planned already in the preceding month. Within days of the attack, Ratko Mladić and others formed the objective to eliminate the Bosnian Muslims in Srebrenica by killing the men and boys and forcibly removing the women, young children, and some elderly men. By the 11th of July 1995, Ratko Mladić and others began to implement this objective. Between the 11th and the 13th of July 1995, members of the Bosnian Serb Army and the Ministry of Interior and a Serbian unit called the Scorpions terrorized and abused the Bosnian Muslims in Potocari. On the 12th of July 1995, these forces began to separate the men and boys of Srebrenica from the women and the young children. Over 1,000 men and boys were separated and detained in Potocari, while the women, young children, and some elderly men were forced out of the enclave. During and after the forcible transfer operation, Bosnian Muslim men and boys were executed through, as it is said in the indictment, in quotation marks, opportunistic killings. In addition to those detained in Potocari, thousands of men and boys who had attempted to flee the enclave were captured by, or surrendered to, the aforementioned Serb forces. On the 13th of July 1995, the forces began the organized executions of the men and boys who had been separated and detained, and those who had surrendered or had been captured. The victims of the executions were buried, and some were exhumed and reburied in an effort to conceal the crimes. According to the indictment, between the 11th of July 1995 and the 1st of November 1995, over 7,000 Bosnian Muslim men and boys of Srebrenica were killed through both organized and opportunistic executions. In addition, serious bodily or mental harm was caused to thousands of female and male Muslims of Srebrenica. Count 3. Persecutions as a crime against humanity. The indictment charges persecutions in the following 23 municipalities: Banja Luka, Bijeljina, Bosanska Krupa, Bosanski Novi, Bratunac, Brčko, Foča, Hačići, Ilidža, Kalinović, Kluč, Kotovaros, Novigrad, Novo Sarajevo, Pale, Prijedor, Rogatica, Sanski Most, Sokolac, Trnovo, Vlasenica, Fokoša, and Srebrenica. Beginning in March 1992, Serb forces and Bosnian Serb political and governmental organs attacked and took control of towns and villages in these municipalities. Most of the takeovers were carried out during 1992 but they continued thereafter. The enclave of Srebrenica was taken over in July 1995. During and after these takeovers and until the 30th of November 1995, Serb forces and Bosnian Serb political and governmental organs carried out persecutory acts against Bosnian Muslims and Bosnian Croats. These acts included the imposition of restrictive and discriminatory measures, arbitrary searches, arbitrary arrest and unlawful detention, forced labor, harassment, torture, rape and other acts of sexual violence, killing, destruction of houses, cultural monuments and sacred sites, and plunder of property. These acts caused Bosnian Muslims and Bosnian Croats to flee the municipalities in fear. Others were physically driven out. Counts 4, 5, and 6, extermination and murder as crimes against humanity and violations of the laws or customs of war. According to the indictment, members of the Serb forces and Bosnian Serb political and governmental organs committed acts of extermination and murder in the aforementioned 23 municipalities in Bosnia and Herzegovina between the 12th of May 1992 and the 30th of November 1995. The indictment further alleges that members of the Yugoslav Army, of the Bosnian Serb Army and of other Serb forces committed acts of murder as part of the objective to spread terror among the civilian population of Sarajevo through a campaign of sniping and shelling between the 12th of May 1992 and November 1995. Further, according to the indictment, members of the Bosnian Serb Army and the Ministry of Interior and a Serbian unit called the Scorpions committed acts of extermination and murder against Bosnian Muslims in Srebrenica between the 11th of July 1995 and the 1st of November 1995. Counts 7 and 8. Deportation and inhumane acts as crimes against humanity. The indictment alleges that between March 1992 and the 30th of November 1995, Serb forces and Bosnian Serb political and governmental organs forcibly displaced Bosnian Muslims and Bosnian Croats from areas in the aforementioned 23 municipalities and in Srebrenica. Counts 9 and 10. Terror and unlawful attacks as violations of the laws or customs of war. The indictment alleges that armed hostilities broke out in Sarajevo around the time Bosnia and Herzegovina was internationally recognized as an independent state on the 6th of April 1992. Around the same time, the city was subjected to blockade, bombardment, and sniper attacks. Between April 1992 and November 1995, members of the Joint Criminal Enterprise relating to Sarajevo implemented a military strategy that used sniping and shelling to kill, maim, wound, and terrorize the civilian inhabitants of Sarajevo. This resulted in the injury and death of thousands of civilians, including children and the elderly. the constant threat of death and injury caused trauma and psychological damage to the inhabitants of Sarajevo. Count 11. Taking of hostages as a violation of the laws or customs of war. The indictment alleges that in response to shelling attacks on Sarajevo and other areas of Bosnia and Herzegovina by Bosnian Serb forces, NATO forces carried out airstrikes against military targets on the 25th and the 26th of May 1995. Between approximately the 26th of May 1995 and the 19th of June 1995, Bosnian Serb forces detained over 200 UN peacekeepers and military observers in various locations, including Pale, Sarajevo, Banja Luka, and Gorazde, and held them at various locations in Republika Srpska in order to render the locations immune from NATO airstrikes and to prevent airstrikes from continuing. Threats were issued to NATO and UN commanders that further NATO attacks on Bosnian Serb military targets would result in the injury, death, or continued detention of the detainees. Some of the detainees were mistreated during their captivity. During and after negotiations with Serbian and Bosnian Serb leaders, including Ratko Mladić, the detainees were released between the 3rd and the 19th of June 1995. This concludes the summary of the indictment. Mr. Mladić, pursuant to Rule 62A, small III of the Rules of Procedure and Evidence, you will be called upon to enter a plea of guilty or not guilty on each count of the indictment within 30 days of this initial appearance. You may, however, request to enter such pleas already today. Mr. Mladić, are you prepared and do you wish to enter pleas today, or would you rather postpone your pleas and enter them within the 30 days which the Rules of Procedure and Evidence provides for?
Mr. Ori, you're a bit older than I am. I would like to receive what you read out just now, these obnoxious charges leveled against me. I want to read this properly, to give it some proper thought together with my lawyers, because I need more than a month for these monstrous words, the ones that I've never heard before, those that were included in this indictment. I have never heard of any such thing, nor can I understand that it is that way.
Mr. Mladić, the wording of the indictment is chosen by the prosecution. An indictment is the basis on which a trial proceeds. I do understand that you want to take more time to carefully read it, and therefore that you will not enter a plea today. You said you need more than 30 days. The rules provide for 30 days. This does not mean that you have to prepare the whole of your defense within that 30 days. There will certainly be more time for that. But the Chamber will stick, as matters stands now, no good cause being shown for deviating from it to the 30 days which the rules grant. So therefore, since you did not, and you are not going to enter a plea today, I hereby schedule a further appearance on the 4th of July 2011 at 10 o'clock in the morning in this courtroom 1. Mr. Mladić, if you want to consult with counsel, you have an opportunity to do so, but rather do it in such a way that not everyone can follow what you're discussing with counsel. If you want to consult, I see that Mr. Alexic says that there's no need for further consultation at this moment. Mr. Mladić, in the meantime, you will remain in custody at the United Nations Detention Unit, and your counsel, Mr. Alexic, can inform you about the rules governing pretrial detention. There is, however, yes. If you want to speak to counsel, please do it in such a way that not everyone can follow it, because you might to consult him in confidence. If you want to speak to us, you should switch on your microphone so that whatever you say will be interpreted and will then be the way you can hear it.
Your Honors, may we take a short break, please?
Yes, you want to consult. Is there any? Let me just 1 second. Could you give us an indication as how much time you need? Is it a matter of minutes or?
10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Yes, we'll briefly adjourn and we'll resume in not more than 10 minutes from now. We'll remain standby. If you don't need any further time, I'd like to be informed so that we can restart immediately. We have a short break.
All rise, we will